They call me the Iron Monk. They whisper it in the cloisters when they think I am out of earshot, though the sound of my approach is hardly subtle. Clank, grind, wheeze. I am a symphony of rusted metal and failing lungs, a walking reliquary of a war everyone else has tried to forget. I have not felt the touch of the wind on my chest, nor the coolness of a linen shirt against my back, for 15 years. My skin has become a stranger to me, a distant memory of softness that belongs to a man who died in the fires of the East. Now there is only the gambeson, stiff with ancient sweat and dried blood, and over it, the mail, and over that, the plate. It is fused to me, not by magic, but by the alchemy of trauma and time. The rivets are rusted shut, the leather straps petrified into stone-hard bands that bite into my flesh with every breath. I sleep in it. I pray in it. I eat in it. And one day soon I will rot in it. The brothers here in the preceptory of Paris look at me with a mixture of reverence and revulsion. To the novices, I am a legend, a living statue from the heroic age of the order. They see the white mantle, stained gray with the grime of a decade, and they imagine glory. They do not smell what I smell. They do not stand close enough to catch the scent of the slow, creeping necrosis that lives beneath the steel. It is a sweet, cloying odor, like overripe lilies left on a grave, masking the sharp tang of old copper. The older knights, the ones who stayed in France and managed estates while we bled in the desert, they know better. They see the madness in my eyes. They have tried to order me to disarm. The preceptor, a fat man with soft hands, once commanded me to strip for the infirmarian. I drew my sword. I did not speak. I simply laid the rusted blade across the table. He looked into my face, saw the absolute desolation there, and retreated. They leave me alone now. They let me haunt the chapel like a ghost in a shell, clanking through the masses, a reminder of the sins they cannot absolve. My body aches with a dull, throbbing permanence that has become the rhythm of my existence. The weight of the hauberk, some 40 pounds of iron rings, pulls at my shoulders, compressing my spine until I walk with a stoop. My knees grind. The cartilage long since worn away, bone rubbing on bone like millstones. But the pain is a mercy. The pain anchors me. If I were to take this armor off, if I were to let the air touch the ruin of my body, I would fall apart. I am not held together by muscle and sinew anymore. I am held together by the rivets. I am a creature of containment. Inside this iron cage, the memories of the siege bang against the walls like trapped birds, desperate to get out, desperate to scream, but the armor holds them in. It keeps the horror tight against my skin where it belongs. It is my penance. It is my tomb. I remember the day I put it on for the last time. It was a morning in May, in the year of our Lord 1291. The sun was rising over the city of Acre, turning the sea into a sheet of hammered gold. I was young then, or at least I felt young. My name was different. It was a name spoken with affection by women and with respect by my peers. I had scars, yes, the small white lines of training accidents and skirmishes, badges of honor that I displayed with pride in the bathhouse. I remember polishing the steel that morning. I sat on a stool in the courtyard of the Templar fortress, rubbing the links of my mail with sand and vinegar until they shone like silver coins. I oiled the leather straps. I was meticulous. A knight's armor is his soul made manifest, we were told. Keep it bright, and your spirit will be bright. I believed that. I believed in the order of things. I believed that if I strapped the greaves tight and laced the coif correctly, I was safe. Not safe from death. We all expected death, but safe from chaos. Safe from the unraveling of the world. I remember the sensation of the gambeson going on, the padded wool thick and comforting. Then the chausses on the legs, the heavy mail shirt sliding over my head with a familiar clink sound. It felt like an embrace. It felt like purpose. I buckled the sword belt, feeling the weight of the pommel against my hip. I was encased. I was a weapon of God. I looked at my reflection in a bucket of water. I saw a knight of the temple, strong, resolute, ready to defend the last foothold of Christendom. I did not know that I was looking at a man who was about to step into a furnace that would melt him down and recast him into a monster. I walked to the walls, the spurs jingling on my heels, and I felt invincible. The armor was my skin, and like skin, I thought it would heal if it was cut. I was a fool. Steel does not heal, it only rusts. And memory does not fade, it only festers. The memory of Acre is not a linear story. It is a series of flashes, blinding and hot, like the explosions of the naphtha pots the Mamluks hurled at us. The siege had been going on for weeks, a grinding attrition that turned the beautiful city into a slaughterhouse. But the day the armor became my skin was the day the outer wall fell. We were fighting in the breach near the king's tower. The noise was a physical thing, a wall of sound, screams, crumbling stone, the roar of fire that battered us as hard as the enemy maces. I was shoulder to shoulder with my brothers, a shield wall of white crosses against a tide of Saracen green and black. The air was thick with dust and the smell of roasting meat. We were tired, thirsty, maddened by the heat, but we held. We were Templars. We did not break. Then came the fire. It wasn't the usual pitch. It was something alchemical, a devil's brew that stuck to whatever it touched. A ceramic pot shattered against the stone battlement above me, raining down a liquid hell. It splashed over my left shoulder, running down the gorget, seeping into the gaps of the mail, soaking the gambeson beneath. For a second, there was only the wetness. Then, the spark. I ignited. The world turned white. I remember opening my mouth to scream, but the air in my lungs was sucked out by the flames. I was a torch. The heat was instantaneous and absolute. It didn't just burn the surface, it cooked the meat. I felt the wool of the gambeson fusing to my chest. I felt the links of the mail heating up, branding their pattern into my muscle, searing the red cross of the order permanently into my flesh. I fell to my knees, clawing at the straps, trying to rip the burning metal off. "Help me!" I tried to shout, but my voice was a croak. A brother, I think it was Thomas, a boy from Yorkshire, grabbed a bucket of water and threw it on me. The steam hissed like a viper, scalding me further, but the flames died. I lay there, gasping, smelling the pork roast stench of my own body. The pain was beyond description. It was a high, singing note that vibrated in every nerve ending. "We must get it off," Thomas said, his hands shaking as he reached for my buckles. "We must cut it off." "No!" I shoved him away. The adrenaline was flooding my system, a cold chemical tide warring with the pain. If I took the armor off now, I would see the damage. If I took it off, I would be a cripple. I would be useless. The Mamluks were surging through the breach. My brothers were dying. If I stripped, I was done. I was just a burned man waiting to be butchered. If I stayed in the iron, I was still a knight. I grabbed my sword, using it as a crutch to stand. The metal of the hauberk was still hot, searing the raw flesh underneath, but the cooling action of the air made the fabric and blood begin to harden. It was binding. It was sticking. "Leave it," I snarled, the pain turning into a fuel, a white-hot rage. "I can still fight." Thomas looked at me with horror, but he nodded. He handed me my shield. I turned back to the breach. I did not know then that I had made a pact with the iron. I thought I was choosing duty. I was choosing damnation. The rest of that day is a blur of agony and violence. I fought like a man possessed because I was possessed by pain. Every movement was a tear. Every swing of the sword ripped the burns open again, only for them to instantly sear shut against the hot metal. I became a machine. I didn't need to fear the enemy's blades. What could they do to me that the fire hadn't already done? I waded into the press, swinging wildly, screaming a wordless war cry. The Mamluks fell back from me, terrified by the smoking, reeking demon in their midst. I killed until my arm went numb. I killed until the sun went down, and the city was burning brighter than the day. I didn't drink water. I didn't stop. To stop was to feel. To feel was to die. When the retreat was sounded, when the Grand Master fell and the order came to fall back to the harbor, I was still standing. My armor was black with soot and gore. My left side was a rigid carapace of fused wool, steel, and scab. I limped towards the sea, part of the rearguard. We were leaving. The Holy Land was lost. I remember standing on the deck of the galley as we pulled away, watching the Acre lighthouse crumble into the sea. The other knights were stripping off their gear, weeping, tending to their wounds. The chirurgeon came to me, a knife in his hand. "Let me cut the straps, brother," he said gently. "We need to clean that burn." I looked at him, and then I looked at the dark water. I tried to lift my left arm to undo the buckle at my neck. I couldn't. The movement was impossible. The fabric of the gambeson had dried into the burn, gluing the mail to my skin. It was one solid mass. To remove it would be to flay myself alive. And more than that, if I took it off, I would have to look at what I had become. I would have to see the ruin. As long as the armor was on, I was whole. I was the shape of a man. "No," I whispered. "It stays." The chirurgeon argued, he pleaded, he threatened gangrene and rot. I turned my back on him and stared at the burning horizon. I slept that night sitting up, the iron holding me upright, the rust beginning its slow, intimate conversation with my blood. The journey back to Europe was a slow descent into a private hell. The ship was crowded, rolling on the swells of the Mediterranean, a vessel of defeat. We were the refuse of the crusade, washed up by the tide of history. In the cramped hold, the heat was stifling. Men lay in their shirts, nursing stumps and arrow wounds, groaning in the dark. I sat in the corner, a dark metallic shape that never moved. The smell began on the third day. It was faint at first, the scent of old meat. By the fifth day, it was undeniable. The burn was weeping. The infection was blooming in the dark, warm space between the steel and the rib cage. My brothers began to shun me. They moved their pallets away. They whispered that I was rotting from the inside out, that I was a walking corpse. Maybe they were right. I felt the fever take me, a hot, delirious haze that distorted time. I had dreams of the fire, dreams where the armor was not steel but dragon scales growing out of my own body. I woke up shivering, the metal cold and clammy against my fevered skin. I drank water, but I did not eat. I focused entirely on the will to remain rigid. I believed with a fanatic's logic that the armor was the only thing keeping the infection contained. If I opened the seal, the rot would spill out and consume me. We landed in Cyprus first, then sailed on to France. At every port, the offer was made. "Let us take it off. Let us help you." And every time, my refusal became more violent. It was no longer about the pain. It was about identity. Who was I without the shell? I was a failure. I was a man who had lost everything: his land, his purpose, his God's favor. The armor was the last remnant of the temple. It was the only thing that was real. I began to hate the soft skin of the other men. They were weak. They could bleed. I was iron. I was enduring. When we finally reached the preceptory in Paris, the Grand Master himself came to see the mad knight. He stood in the door of my cell, holding a perfumed handkerchief to his nose. "This is against the rule," he said, his voice muffled. "A brother must be clean, a brother must be humble. This vanity of suffering is a sin." "Is it vanity?" I rasped, my voice sounding like stones grinding together. "Or is it the only truth left to us?" I stood up, the chains rattling, the plates shifting with a tectonic groan. "I carry the siege with me, Master. I carry the fire. You want me to take it off? You want to see the truth of our crusade?" I took a step towards him, and for the first time, I unbuckled a single strap on my gauntlet. I pulled the leather back, revealing a patch of wrist where the skin was a weeping, black and red horror, merged with the rust of the vambrace. The smell hit him like a physical blow. He gagged and stepped back, his eyes wide with revulsion. "Cover it," he whispered, turning away. "Cover it in God's name." "God has no name here," I said. buckling the strap again. There is only the iron. He left and he never returned. I was left to my vigil. I became the specter of the preceptory, the man who never sleeps, the man who never disrobes. I learned to clean myself as best I could by pouring vinegar through the gaps in the mail, biting down on a leather strap to keep from screaming as the acid bit into the raw flesh. I learned to sleep upright in a chair because lying down made the fluid settle in my lungs. I learned to live as a fortress, with the drawbridge permanently raised. Years have passed. The fever comes and goes, a familiar companion now. I feel the armor tightening as I age, or perhaps I am shrinking inside it, drying out like a kernel in a husk. The world outside has moved on. The order is changing. There are rumors of the King of France looking at our wealth with greedy eyes. They talk of heresy, of trials. I do not care. My trial happens every morning when I wake up and realize I am still alive. Yesterday, a young novice came to my cell. He did not hold a handkerchief to his nose. He looked at me with wide, curious eyes. "Does it hurt?" he asked, pointing to the rusted gorget that chafes my neck. "Yes," I said. "Why do you keep it?" I looked at him, at his smooth, unblemished face, and I felt a sudden, crushing wave of sadness. He could not understand. He saw a piece of equipment. I saw a reliquary. "Because," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "as long as I wear this, the battle is not over. As long as I wear this, Acre has not fallen. I am holding the wall, boy. I am holding the wall alone." He nodded, though he did not understand, and left me a bowl of broth. I stared at the reflection in the spoon. I did not see a face. I saw a visor. I saw a dark slit where humanity used to be. The metal has finally won. It has eaten the man. And soon, it will be time to see what lies beneath the rust. The end is near. I can feel it in the coldness of my extremities, in the way my breath rattles like dry leaves in a helmet. The infection has finally breached the citadel of my heart. My legs are swollen, immovable pillars of agony. I have not left my chair in 3 days. The brothers know. They stand in the doorway whispering, debating what to do with the iron monk when he finally stops breathing. They are arguing about how to bury me. "We must cut him out," the prior says. "We cannot bury him in his gear. It is not the custom." Fools. If they cut me out, they will find nothing but dust and bones held together by rust. The armor is the body now. I close my eyes and I am back in Acre. But there is no fire this time. There is only the sea, cool and dark. I feel the weight lifting. It is a strange sensation, this lightness. For 15 years I have carried the weight of a cathedral on my shoulders. Now the stones are floating. I try to lift my hand. The rusted gauntlet does not move, but something else does. I feel a hand. My hand, but young, unscarred, golden, pulling free from the iron glove. I feel my chest expanding, drawing a breath that is deep and sweet, smelling of jasmine and salt air. I look down. The rusted shell sits in the chair, a dark, hulking shape, a monument to pain. But I am not in it. I am standing before it. I am naked, but I am not ashamed. My skin is whole. The burns are gone, the scars are gone. I look at the armor, at the prison I built to keep the horror in, and I see it for what it was. It was not a tomb. It was a chrysalis. It held me until I was ready to be born again. The door opens. The prior enters with the blacksmith, carrying heavy shears and a hammer. They approach the chair. They touch the visor. They do not see me standing in the corner, bathed in a light that comes from no window. They begin to pry at the rivets. Let them have the iron. Let them have the rust and the smell and the memory of the siege. I am done with it. "He is gone," the prior says, his hand resting on the cold steel of the breastplate. "No," I whisper, though they cannot hear me. "I have just arrived." I turn away from the cell, away from the darkness. and I walk out into the light. The siege is lifted. The gate is open, and I am finally clean.